Should be a great episode with Anil in just a moment. Before we get to it, let me tell you about Yoast. They're our partner for this episode, a long-time post-status partner. We're thankful for them being a part of the show today. Yoast is SEO for everyone. Yoast SEO Premium gives you 24/7 support and extra features like internal linking, social previews, a redirect manager, tutorial videos, and integration with Google Webmaster Tools. Get on board today with the premier SEO plugin for WordPress, and that's Yoast. Go to poststatus.com/Yoast to check it out right now. Thanks so much to Yoast for being our partner. Now, here we go. Hello and welcome to Post Status Draft. My name is Brian Krogsgaard. Today we're talking to a friend of mine, Anil Gupta. He's been on the show before, but they've got something new they're working over there at Multidots. It's Multicollab, something that I've wanted in WordPress, I guess, forever, which is more Google-like functionality for collaboration right there in the post editor. That's what they've done. Really excited to have him on today. Anil, hello.
Hey, Brian.
How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good.
It's my pleasure to have you. We talked, we did an interview at Cabo Press. Was the last time? No, it was after. It was at WordCamp US. We hung out at Cabo Press and then WordCamp US a couple years ago. It doesn't feel like long ago, but we've had like a lot of world events in between. So it's great to see you and great to have you on Post Status Draft today.
Yeah, and I've been following a lot of interesting news that you have been sharing through Post Status newsletter, weekly newsletter. So that was super helpful, and I kind of knew everything that's going on in WordPress community and all the insightful coverage that you and your team was doing. That was super helpful, especially in the circumstances where we are not able to connect as much as we can, with other community members.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the WordPress community has been remote for a very long time, and then everyone became remote.
Yeah.
So thankfully, the transition through the pandemic was a little easier for some folks in the WordPress landscape because we're more accustomed to that workflow. So yeah, that's kind of where we are, and it's been a journey. You've been busy through that time. Multidots. Everybody knows that y'all have been a successful agency for quite a while, because I assume they all listened last time you were on Post Status Draft. Talked about y'all doing VIP work and a lot of high-end agency work. So how did you carve out the time to get so deeply on the product side? Did this originate as a something for a client, or was it scratching your own itch of something that you wanted to fix?
Right. So it actually started as a client request. So we work with a lot of large scale media and publishers, and one of our client who are pretty good big publishers, and they kind of came to us and they're like, hey, we have these hundreds of contributors, which we would like to invite them to write and publish white papers for us. But we also need something where our editorial team can review that, provide them feedback, and basically they kind of had this like one-line definition, like we need something like Google Doc, right? Where we can leave comments, where people can see the edits that we are making. So it's kind of collaborating. Plus, you can, there is not like a lot of back and forth. So they wanted something like that to build inside the WordPress. And we were aware that at that moment, there is not anything like that exists in the core WordPress. And my understanding is Gutenberg roadmap, especially in the phase 4 and 5, we are kind of planning for collaborating features, right?
Yeah, so that's I know quite a ways away, though.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, so that's something that it's future, but if you look at the present, we don't have like a decent workable solution. So yeah, we agreed with our client, and we're like, hey, let's do this. We can build this solution and together, and we will build this as multi-dots plugin. So multi-dots team will work on this, and we would also like to, release these as an open source. So we kind of had all of those things in agreement, and yeah, then our team started working for them, and we delivered workable solutions for them. And then we created another branch, and we continued Multicollab to expand that branch to Multicollab.
That's awesome. So, people have wanted collaboration in WordPress for a long time. What did you usually, when something doesn't show up, despite years of people calling for it, I just assume it's a really hard problem. So I'm going to assume this is a really hard problem. What were the really hard elements of it, and how did you kind of get around that to achieve what the product became?
Right. So from engineering perspective, what I see is Gutenberg, like it's a user-generated content. So on the back end of the WordPress, right, you can create any sort of content, and you use a variety of different blocks. So the first challenge for us was like, okay, offering a markup on that content, and offering and creating options to allow users to select a text, and then they get this little window where they can type comments, assign users, all of that. So I think biggest challenge for us was we can actually do some of those things pretty easily on text-based block. Mm-hmm. But when we have images or tables or videos, like more complex blocks, like their markup, HTML markup, would be a little bit challenging. So it is still a challenge. So the way we have started right now, we have in our first phase, our goal was to offer commenting on text-based blocks. And now our team is also working on making other Gutenberg blocks compatible. So our first goal is to all the native blocks, I think, which are around 60, 62 or something. So we are planning to make them compatible first. And then we are also looking at some popular blocks, third-party blocks that should also work. So I think, that is a challenge, and I think it will be an ongoing challenge for us.
Yeah, so your tooling essentially has to detect, hey, here's a block, here's a type of block, here's how we like wrap it or do some kind of additional markup so that our whatever JavaScript is listening to be able to do, the various functionality that we do. So you're kind of wrapping it and putting your functionality on top of it. So it has to be able to detect what's there to know what to do with it. And the wide universe of output that can exist in the source code of those blocks. If you go to that HTML view, I guess, it can get pretty spicy. I imagine that it could be a developer nightmare because it's what is it? Like, it's kind of unknown, right? Like it's people's playground. It's not like super structured content. So it makes it to where you have to be quite thorough in how you like touch that and do stuff with that code.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very big part of the challenge and the problem that we are trying to solve with Multicollab.
Yeah. So in terms of the way you do collaborate on Multicollab, I see the comment in line, reply and resolve, team collaboration, activity center. So this is mostly the equivalent in Google Docs as if you're viewing and then you're kind of commenting, editing, having moderation capability, but it's not like multiple cursors on the screen typing at the same time type stuff yet, right?
Right. So simultaneous editing is something that I think it even doesn't exist in the WordPress. So WordPress, even when I think you have to save a post or before other person can edit that post, right? So at this moment, we have tried to design the Multicollabs workflow that actually fit with WordPress default publishing workflow. So you are right. At this moment, you can't, two people can't leave the comment at the same time, and we are like complying. We are in compliance with the existing workflow, but we are hoping in the future when WordPress default like editing interface is where allows simultaneous users to edit at the same time. That's where we are also planning that Multicollab will also, will adapt to that new workflow.
Yeah, and that way you're not like creating something from scratch. You're kind of inheriting the default WordPress behavior and adding all these editorial components to that. How big of a deal was it? Because I guess it's recently where in WordPress it's a little simpler to take something that's published and say, I want to tweak it, but not publish it quite yet, but I do want to save it. Like that. I don't know what that's called. You might know what that's called. But that's a pretty new development in WordPress that had to help support the creation of a plugin like this, right?
Right. So I think with our client who reached out to us, they were also in the similar situation where they wanted their users to just write white papers, but then their editorial team can, and there is a lot of collaboration, right? So both the team, they were planning to edit and improvise the content and article. So in that sense, yeah, I think at this moment you just have to save it, and then when editorial or content moderator or editorial team, right, they will review and they can provide corrections and feedback. So I think that feedback loop is something that we were able to implement it. So that's what you can utilize pretty smoothly. And when most of the times where you save the article, right? So either it will be in a draft. So as soon as you publish it, right, it's out in public, right? But you can save it as a draft, or you can save it as a pending. And our plugin actually works very well in that environment where other users, they will still able to see the notifications and email notification, even the article is not published. And the comments that you leave, that will not go out. It will remain in the backend, even article is published.
Right. Yeah. So that way it's all the mess of editing the post stays on the backend for the users involved. What else did you come across when you were putting this together in terms of maybe surprises, like what the client needed, what you wanted to add for the public distribution, just things that you experienced?
I think when we had some of the interesting challenge and things that I'm very proud that my team were able to do it. So number one is the entire this commenting feature that we were planning to bring inside the WordPress backend. We were also very mindful about the WordPress users role. So the different users have a different permissions. Some users can only create articles, right? So when they have to assign a comment or mention someone, right? So we had to we needed to make sure that they can only invite or mention the users who has the permissions to other to view that articles or the blog post. So earlier that we thought probably will not be a challenge, but then when we looked into the user's role, I was like, wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, especially if they don't have very strong permissions in the main app, but you want to give them these permissions specifically for collaboration. It might be something that they weren't allowed to do if you think of it in the global sense of WordPress. So there was a plugin back in the day that was kind of a fan favorite, but it wasn't widely used and difficult to support, called Edit Flow. And that was Daniel Bachhuber and some other folks that worked on that. And then Automatic kind of took it over, but it just never really got all the way. But it had a lot of these same ideas of, trying to create collaboration and an editorial process in WordPress. Creating content, the publisher, that is WordPress's biggest advantage. But then the number one thing publishers want to do of collaboration, it always lacked. Gutenberg, I feel like, has enabled a lot more tooling in WordPress. Do you think it really took Gutenberg before you could create this type of product the right way? Because it seemed like with Edit Flow, not being able to save in line as well, or, some of the JavaScript native stuff, some of the things you can do in React that were just really hard to do when it's not like single page application style functionality. Do you think that was the biggest difference maker for being able to make a product like this a success?
Right. I think Gutenberg brought a kind of interface where we can play a little bit more, right? Earlier the classic editor, some of those elements, right? Like the styles, those are pretty inbuilt, right? And if you have to if you want to like extend the editing interface, it's pretty much like plain HTML. Now we can actually envision a lot of different things into blocks, and each block has their own markup and all that. So I feel that it's kind of right at this moment when we were thinking about the new interface with Gutenberg, I think allowed us to create a lot of functionality. Of course, like we still have some limitations that we are still dealing with, but thing that I see is with Edit Flow, when we were thinking about developing Multicollab, we saw that the leaving comments was more like custom, like advanced custom field, SEF sort of. So comments were like more adding as in like meta information, but inline commenting was something that I think Google Doc, they have spoiled the user rights of people. So our goal was to replicate something, to give the same experience, because when it comes to content collaboration, if you look at the benchmark at this moment, it's Google Doc, right? Yeah. So that's why I think with Gutenberg React, I think our engineering team and engineers around the world probably had more capabilities to play with.
Yeah, that's always tough when like you're trying to recreate something that universally works quite well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Google
exactly.
Docs, they created something, and it's not perfect, but the collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 was all of a sudden like, uh-oh. So like if Microsoft is worried about being able to replicate functionality, then it certainly is going to make it hard for a content management system to do similar. So
right.
It makes it very difficult if the standard product for this type of thing is very good at what it does. But now you want to take something that's really good at what it does and pull it into where you're working, which is in the content management system, which is an obviously super important component of this. Because right now, if people want this type of stuff without a tool like yours, they have to do that workflow all in Google Docs and stuff. But then you can lose the quality assurance, right? If you're going from Google Docs straight to WordPress, as good as the imports can get over time, it's never going to be perfect, especially when you consider components that are not in Google Blocks, but you're trying to take advantage of in WordPress, right? Like if there's a custom block or something as simple as maybe a pull quote or who knows what. The fact that you're WordPress native, that's where you're doing your quality checking. That's where you really want to give the final sign off, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there are multiple ways that this can be helpful, right? So even if you are just a publisher, a solo publisher, right? And if you're writing something, if you just want to leave some comments for you to review them later. So I'm sure, like, in that case, if in WordPress backend, if you can just leave some notes and comments in your draft, which you can later come back and edit it. So all of those things, yeah, you can do it pretty well if those things are within the WordPress backend.
You bring up another great point there of why it makes so much more sense to use a tool like this, because your history is all in the same place where it lives permanently. So there's this like, I don't know, you can do this accountability checking, like when you go back on a piece. It's like if you check, it's like similar if you think of like in Git or something, if the first, if you just pull in a finished product and you like put it on a new repo and it doesn't have any of the history of the previous development, like it's not very useful to you. So in this scenario, it's like, okay, well, here was what we went through when we edited it. We have the history of editing this piece of material. Maybe that doesn't matter so much for like time-sensitive blog posts, but certainly when you think about a site that's super documentation heavy or like has policies or all those types of things, having that history of the documentation, the conversation, all of that right there in the content management system is a massive advantage.
Yeah, you brought a very good point. And one of our client, when we are having this discussion, so I invited them to try it. And the very first thing they brought is legal reviews. So there's like, they are a large publisher, and they said this is going to help them, because if they can do this content collaboration within the WordPress, then the history and the reviews and edits, they can track it. And even the commenting, so we are also working, so make sure that we also have the pretty good history of the comments. So basically you can see like what were the editorial team suggested to change, and what the entire conversations about collaborating, we can actually bring it up when they need for the legal review.
Yeah, that's really good. What else have you seen people do with this so far? Or, I mean, you're an agency with tons of clients that probably you want to pitch this for. How are you pitching this with your clients, or how are they like picking up on it and using it so far?
So, yeah, I think since we launched, we received so many feedbacks, comments from the WordPress community. So people who were actively looking for something like this, they are reaching out to us, and they're sharing their sentiments, and they're saying like this is exactly that they were looking for from a long time. Our clients, they are loving it. So most of our clients, we suggested them to use it. Their editorial team and publishing team, they are basically coming back and asking us a lot of new features. That's what kind of it's becoming our roadmap. Yeah. So one of the feature that one of our client requested, which is pretty cool, is like, hey, in the WordPress dashboard, is there any way where our team, so super admin can see how many comments I have assigned to different users. So basically, they are kind of looking for some kind of productivity tool, so they can see user A has these 5 comments open, and other user has these 10 comments assigned. So when they're resolving, and so that they can publish. So I can see that people are using in a multiple different ways. For some, it's a content collaboration. For some, it's just maybe some annotations and notes that they can refer later. For some people, it's more like a productivity tool where they can like work with the team. They also want to create team names. So there's like, I want to create team A, and I want to put this 5 editor and moderator, and then anytime I mention the team name in the comment, these 5 people or 6 people should get a notification. So there are like a lot of different creative ways that they are actually sharing the feedback, and I'm very excited about that to implement as many features, as important features as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you have the perfect audience to like get that live feedback as you go along as well. So what you don't see, but if anyone is happening to watch this on the video and not in the podcast feed, is I've got a live demo up that I've been like playing with while you're talking. Now, unfortunately for you, you can't see what I'm doing, but I assure you, I am, having fun because I'm able to, highlight something and hit the drop down, press comment. It assigns it with my, temporary username through your backend live demo. Very cool functionality, by the way.
Thanks.
And then I think it's really cool that you bring in the whole discussion too. It's like, so I can go click on something else that's been commented on, and it's like, okay, well, Henry Watson said something, and then Angela Morrison replied, and now I can reply to that. So it's really enabling all of these individuals to participate in that conversation. You're sending all the emails and stuff. How much is this? This is just my nerdy curiosity. How much of this is like native WordPress data structure? So are these comments with like a hidden type or something in the database so that they're only on this side, but you're using a native WordPress comment structure, or what's the actual data structure for the plugin?
Right. I don't have that accurate understanding about how my engineering team has structured it.
Yeah, that's fine. But I threw that on you. A little bit of a surprise.
But I think based on my understanding, we are using meta options to store the comments. But yeah, I'm not that technical, and it would not be fair for me to comment on that.
That's fine. I threw that one on you. I was just curious how it's going. From a presentation perspective, though, it's very very clean, and the a lot of this stuff has just always been tricky in WordPress. Like comments have always been tricky, emails have always been tricky. Did you run into any other surprises in terms of like what you could do in emails? Like, are you having to do certain types of formatting in emails? Are you taking advantage of anything built into WordPress, or did you have to build a bunch of stuff to create the functionality?
So for email, we are using the default WordPress email functions, and we tried kind of bringing some colors into the comment, because right now the email notifications, the default emails are like,
they're bad.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to add some colors and some sparkles. So I think our design team and engineering team were able to successful with that, and the comments are quite looks good at this moment.
Yeah. What else have you learned as a company? I guess y'all have, I don't know what all plugin work you have out there that's published, but you've been a consulting agency doing client work. So how has it been getting your hands dirty on the plugin and product side of things?
Right. For engineers, it's always exciting, right? Because they are always looking for great challenges and interesting problems to solve. But from project management perspective, it's kind of little hard, because most of our project managers, they are more tend to work with clients, like deadline and project plans. So I nominated myself. I was like, I'll be the client, and we have to take this work, like this project as like official project. I'll be the client. We'll define the roadmap and milestone. We will do. So basically, following the exact project management process that we follow for the custom project that we take on our hand. So doing that, implementing that was something that was quite a fun and in a way challenge, because when I had to play, I was like, sometimes I'm CEO of the company and sometimes I'm playing a client role of a client. So I could see like sometimes, some of the frustration, probably my client would be like, okay, this is how I want these things, So it was a lot of learning as well, because me being on a client's place, I kind of learned a lot that what we can improve or what we can make better in our client experiences and project management process.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, like with the size of company that we have, most of the times I play a very strategic role, but when it comes to the execution and day-to-day operations, this allowed me to kind of be more hands-on with my project management team, engineering team, how they think, how they perceive processes, and most importantly, what an experience look like for the multi-ROS client when they work with my team. So I had a first-hand experience.
Yeah. Was that stressful or fun or both?
Both, yeah.
Last time we talked, y'all were about 100 people, maybe a little over 100 people. Have y'all continued to grow, or did you try to level off the headcount? That was in 2019. So how do things look different at the company today?
So we kind of maintain the same team size. In fact, we are trying to not add a lot of people at this moment, but our goal is to improve our processes, because we since last two years we are also in a kind of transition phase. So earlier we were working with different client groups. So now we are also working primarily with large scale media and publishing companies. So now the number of clients are less, but the project size and those are like quite big. Complexities are big. So in regards to the team, we are trying to be more productive and efficient with processes. Rather than adding a lot of people, we are investing a lot into improving the process, tools, and productivity.
Yeah, that's always interesting, because people say, like, okay, well, how do you grow, right? And well, there's more than one way to grow. You can grow headcount, but if you reduce profitability, you didn't actually grow. So another way to grow is to maintain your headcount, but increase your efficiency, improve your processes, and probably end up improving your client experiences when you do that too. And on the plus side, you can improve your profitability either in gross or in percentage. Percentage is probably the more important for peace of mind as the owner of the business.
Right. No, you said it right. And that is exactly what we experienced. So in 2019, year of 2019 and 18, we were a team size of 135 or something. And this year, we are somewhere around 75. So almost like half team. But our revenue was at 20% more than what our revenue was in 2019 with 135 people at this moment with the 75 team. So yeah, the half of the team size, we are still able to generate more revenue and more profitable. So
okay, so I know this is about Multicollab, but I got to dig into that. So when you do that, I mean, I know some of it is got to be a blend of attrition that's natural in any company, plus, you have to prune, where necessary. Any company has to go through these processes. So people leave on their own, or you have to ask people to leave. How do you feel like you end up with the best people when it's all said and done after that?
So, I think one of the foundational value for the Multi-ROS was serving people. And as a part of that, it was very hard for us when we decided to let pretty much like half of our team. But we also were committed that we will explain them, our vision, what kind of vision that we are looking at. And so we did it in a way so that a lot of people, we helped them to find a different job. We made sure that our standard notice is, I think, 1 month in India, but we offered 3 month, in some cases, 4 to 6 month notice for them. And so those were like some of the way where we were able to make sure that people who were with Multi-ROS, they feel when they leave Multi-ROS, they have to leave Multi-ROS. They live with respect and honor. So that was
we did, and we also did it incremental. So a lot of people, some of the team members, we also paid them for 6 months or 8 months. And at the same time, we were also making sure that until they find another job, they don't have to worry about leaving that company. So some of the times we did it with very old employee who has been with our company for 8, 9, or 10 years.
And then, from the profitability perspective, how do you start to implement those changes from from processing? Is it just raising your prices and then having people that are dedicated to reviewing what you do? What kind of stages did you take in terms of increasing your revenue without sacrificing your service because you're pulling headcount down?
So I think there's a lot of things that goes into that, right? So earlier we were offering, so first thing, it starts with where you're offering. So the types of services that we were offering. So there were some areas where we were doing outside WordPress, like some technologies where we knew that we are not that as good as we should be. So defining where do you want to focus. So we started with that, okay, what are those areas where Multidos is really good at, our engineering team is really good at, and the areas where we know that we are struggling or we are not able to deliver the best services, right? So that it started from there. So first step is to decide what is your focus. Then mindset and training is also, I think, played a very important role, where we spent quite a good time, multiple different workshops and meetups where we educated our team what is our vision and finding the gap in the skills. So a lot of trainings that my business partner, he designed multiple different trainings to learn more enterprise and more high-end engineering. So it was a kind of and we also had to slow down a little bit of a scale. So we also decided that we had, I think, 65 active clients at that time. And gradually we had to let some of the clients know that, hey, we will not be able to continue to provide services. So we decided that we will work with 30 clients, but we want to work with the clients where really we can add great service. Our service, we can offer the great level of client services. So it was a lot of such tough decisions. Some of them were more about finding the gap and educating people. I think the most important thing that we experienced was making sure that everyone is on the same page. So that's where we spend a lot of our time and energy. Even our clients, we were constantly and actively telling them hey, this is a transition that we are going through. And, some of them, we informed them this is what you are going to get. Because at the end, our goal was that we work with focused group of clients and we provide them the great level of service and focus to their business.
Yeah. So in that, just doing that math in my head, is that 30 or 40 clients at any one time, or are most of these total in a year type of setup? Okay. So total in a year, then, in that case, that means that essentially if you have a team of 75, 80, you're dedicating an equivalent of maybe 2 employees. I know there's overhead there, but not everybody's not like a developer or designer or whatever, but you have people that are dedicating time, full time, to a particular client. So you're kind of like an outsourced arm of their company when you're doing those client relationships.
So some of our relationships are where they work with the developers directly, but in some of the cases, we are in charge of entire project management and execution. But doing the math, you are right, because our engineering team is around 60 at this moment, and the rest all are the overheads. So with that math, 2 two engineers per client, is kind of
right.
something.
So even if there's, say, 4 or 5 engineers on a particular project, when you average that out, it's as if you have multiple full-time people per client in a year. So that gives you some people some kind of hint in terms of how you structure contracts to have larger contracts, fewer headcount, and how you end up doing that math, which is going to be really helpful, especially for somebody, they're not at your scale. They're not like figuring out how big can they be and then iron out the processes. They got dozens of people. They still got 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, and they're doing $5,000 projects or something, and they have to do 12 of them per developer, and it's like really churn and burn, really difficult. So if someone's figuring out how can you scale, that if you just think of some of those numbers, it starts to put that in context of it's easy to have, you can average, say, a 6-figure client or something in a year with that type of structure. So to get back to Multicollab and put it in context of where we just broke off onto there, a little bit of a rabbit hole. How do you structure it internally? So what is the, after the initial development where you're the client, how do you structure it now? How does it fit within the umbrella of the company? Is it like Multicollab is a team, so it maintains kind of a status as a client, or do you have a product division? How do you fit it in? Yeah,
we already have a product division. We named it the Dot Store. Okay. So that's where we have. I think in the past we built multiple WooCommerce plugins and utilities. Mm-hmm. We had a small team, engineers, support, and a product manager. So at the beginning of this year, in January, we decided to move this project from our regular project managers and team to our production team. So now the project is moved out of our experiment / beta phase to now a full-fledged product workflow.
Awesome. And it'll kind of maintain in that structure. Would you have a time in the life cycle of the product where you say, hey, we've got a big thing for version 3 or whatever, and you say, we're going to shift it back out, or we're going to pull in a project team, and we're going to do the client relationship again, and now the client will be the product team, and but we're going to pull in these extra resources through the consulting side. Would you ever do that in a new version, or do you think those feature developments would stay in the product team?
I haven't thought that far. that sounds like an interesting consideration, because yes, we have a separate engineering team, but I also feel that we have a lot of talented engineers in our client services project who has more exposure, working with different types of projects. So usually my business partner, I think I mostly rely upon him because he is very good at resource planning. So I will see how he is going to structure this. But as far as the engineers and the workflow is concerned, I'm pretty confident that the feature roadmap that we have, it will be quite exciting.
And finally, so far, this is in the WordPress.org plugin repo, and I believe all of the functionality is in that base plugin, unless I'm mistaken. Are there plans for how can we have a paid version of this, or do you always intend for it to be something that's additive to other work that you do? What's the monetization plan? Is there a monetization plan? Is this out of the goodwill only, or what do you plan for in that regard? Planning for the future development of the product and keeping it sustainable.
So let's go back to the first part of your question, which is at this moment, yes, it is on WordPress.org. The code is open source on GitHub, so we are inviting any developer from the community who wants to collaborate or to, in fact, some of the developers reached out to us and they are also contributing in the code with us. So this is open source and free version. My goal and vision with Multicollab is that some of these features that we are offering right now, those are, I think, very basic things that a lot of people need. But some of our enterprise clients who requires some customizations or a different level of support. And so we are collecting like what kind of features that this large media and publishers who require. So at that moment, we are thinking that once we have a decent amount of features that would be useful and valuable, I'm hoping that we will maybe release a premium version or paid version of this Multicollab, where we can monetize and continue to fund this project. And also, there are some other aspect of the Multicollab where right now it's just commenting, but if you look at the Google Doc, they have review and editing feature, right? So you can change something and it will highlight like if somebody has added a new content. So one of our engineering team is working on that, and we have actually built a prototype. So that is pretty cool, where you can enable an editing or review mode, and other users who change the content, you can see them just like Google Doc. Awesome. So those kind of feature is something that I'm hoping that once they are ready, we would like to launch that as a premium option and premium feature.
Yeah, so there's a pretty natural upgrade path to have valuable inherent functionality in the free plugin that then you upgrade to like get extra stuff that I like that, because sometimes there's a free plugin, but it's like, well, it's pretty restricted in terms of what you can actually accomplish, rather than saying, hey, this base functionality, this core functionality is free forever, however many websites. It's not like you install it on a third site, like some kind of restriction that essentially locks you out of functionality that you thought you were getting with the free product. And in this case, you're getting all of that built in, but you have a path for upgrade, which is going to enable you to better support the product in the long term and keep it sustainable. My thing, whenever someone builds something cool, is I want it to be able to be there for a long time, and that inevitably requires monetization in one way or the other. So I'm glad that you have a plan for that. It sounds like a good one to me. Anil, what do you want to leave us with? What would you like to tell folks before we go?
Dan, I would definitely like to invite community members to try this plugin and share the feedback. If you are a developer, and you can also contribute, code or any features. But at the end, my vision is that when Gutenberg is ready in phase 4 and 5 for simultaneous editing and collaborative editing, we see that. I hope that Multicollab will be a foundation, stepping stone for the Gutenberg's the future roadmap. So that's what I'm hoping, and anyone who's listening, can join this interesting thing that we are doing, and contribute something great that we all can profit.
Oh, that's one of the best feelings I imagine for anyone, especially if it's like a free plugin, like the base functionality that then it's like ends up being adopted in core. You really feel like you're able to contribute to the ecosystem as a whole. And, this is a super in-demand feature set. I'm glad that y'all built it for multiple reasons. In particular, because I know that you have a quality agency that's putting out quality code, and you've really thought through what you've put together here. And, it's designed to be useful at that free level, and I'm thankful for that. I'm glad that y'all are branching out from the client side to put this in the, I don't know what you call it, the big boy product bucket at Multi-Dots. I know that's it gets more complicated running a company where you wear both of those hats, the consulting hat and the product hat. Anil, thanks so much for being here with us today. If people want to check it out, you can go to multidots.com to check out all things Multidots. You can also go to multidots.com/multicollab. That's all one word. We will, of course, put that in the show notes on the podcast. Neil, thanks for being here with us. We'll also link up your Twitter and all that fun stuff. This is Post Status Drafts. Go to poststatus.com to check it out. Thanks for being here. Talk to you later.